Hi, I'm Marguerite Martin, and I'm here today with Keryn, a local buyer's agent, and we're going to talk about buying in Tacoma in 2021 and what's involved. So, as we talked about in another video, the market right now is in a bit of a frenzy. We have tons of buyers, local buyers, buyers relocating from out of the area, and just not enough homes to list. And obviously, we're not really building much in Tacoma right now. So our inventory is in kind of this crunch. And if you are ready to buy a home right now, interest rates are low, so it's much more affordable to do that than it has been in years past. And you're entering this market, like we're gonna talk about like what you need to know to be successful. The good old days, you know, we were talking about.
I think about when I started and the conversations we had with people, it was completely different. And I think the buying process, like the culture has changed dramatically, even in the last year and a half. We do things now to be competitive that I was discouraging my clients to do a year ago.
Yeah.
So.
And that is the thing, like this is a different market than it was 5 years ago. 5 years ago, Tacoma was an affordable market. It was a market that had a lot of opportunity. Tacoma is not that anymore. It is no longer an affordable market. You know, our median home price is, you know, for the county is right around $450,000. Like that is, you know, the median income for the county is about $75,000. So it is a tight market. What would you say is the price range that is the most intense? So if somebody's getting their pre-approval and they're like, all right, I'm pre-approved for $475, I'm good to go. Like what would you say is the range where people need to be extra prepared?
I kind of go, okay, like get ready. It used to be $250. That used to be the hard range. Now at $350 is the new $250. $350, I'm like, especially if they're like, I have to be at $350 or below, then I'm like, ooh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you might be going much further out into the county than before. You might not be buying in Tacoma, or you might be getting something very small. Where is the range? So obviously 350 is like the low range of possible these days. Where's the point where you start to get a little breathing room?
Breathing room?
Because I was asking you this before we came on camera, and I was like what? Like 550? And you were like,
and I will say it depends. So I've been working with a lot of North Tacoma buyers, so that's gonna change my perspective.
Absolutely.
So I'm like, can you go to 650? Like, depends. If you want smaller, if you're a little flexible on location, if you're not wanting to be in Proctor or one of the super competitive areas, I would say 500 is a good healthy budget. But it depends on what your wants and needs are. So I tell people location, size, condition, and budget, and what are your top two.
That makes a lot of sense. So the Seattle Times recently did a story and they called Spanaway the hottest real estate market in the country. You know, I grew up in Spanaway. Like this came as a shock to me. It makes a lot of sense. When I bought my first house in 2005, we were in a different boom market. And Tacoma wasn't possible for me, and I bought my first house in Spanaway. Like that was the affordable option. So are you seeing that? People saying, I want to be in Tacoma, my budget is $450, and then they're like, suddenly like, okay, well, I guess Puyallup, Frederickson, Spanaway, Lacey. Like, do you see people spreading out more?
Definitely. And I work with a lot of people who start in Tacoma because that's where I specialize. And then, you know, we build the trust, we build the bond, and then they're like, so, like, Tacoma market's really hard. We really like this house. It's in Lacey. Like, and it depends on how flexible you are with architecture, too. Because if you're like, oh, I'm okay with something, like, newer, because, you know, in Tacoma, like, 1920s. If you're okay with newer, like, Lacey's a really good option, depending what you do for work.
Yeah.
And then it's funny that you mentioned Spanaway. I had people that were looking in Tacoma, and just budget-wise, they got a really nice house for $450 in Spanaway,
So I think the first thing to say to buyers for being prepared is like just recognize that if you are under 550 right now, it's a crunch. And man, if you were 550 6 years ago, you were luxury in Tacoma. Totally. And so it's not you, it's Tacoma. Like, and we're just preparing you. Secondly, be flexible on either the size of your home or where you live, because something is probably going to have to give.
I think what's hardest for me right now when I'm preparing buyers is I get buyers, especially first timers, that come in and they're excited, you know, they're approved, they've got like 5% down, and they're like, especially if they're like, we're willing to go to our max budget. what it takes to win a lot of the time is cash. So, and not all cash necessarily, but you got appraisal gap addendums, you got high earnest money. And so I have folks that are willing to go above list price, but then they don't have the cash to back it up.
Right.
And you're seeing a lot more of the appraisal gap addendums, pre-inspections, and those are expensive.
Yeah.
So essentially you're paying to inspect the home before you even offer on it. And it's a tough market. Other people are pre-inspecting too. And then you lose, and then you have to do it all over again.
So about how much does it cost to pre-inspect a home? If you do a home inspection and a sewer inspection, how much are you looking at?
Depends on if you want the written report or not.
Oh, okay.
Which is hard because it's about $450 for the home inspection, and that's if you get all the remarks and all the photos. And in my thought, as someone who bought a home recently, it's like, well, yeah, I want that. It's a reference. It's helpful for when I improve my home. But if you want to save like a couple $100, you get pictures, but you don't get comments. So, you're looking at
the inspector will come through, take a look at it, take some pictures, tell you what he thinks,
give you the
but
breakdown.
Not document it. Okay.
And that's cheaper. So that will help you determine if you want to go as hard for the house and waive your inspection and buy it as is. But it does kind of stink if you want that documentation for yourself. Just
in case something is missed down the road.
Yeah, or you just want to for me, I like to see it because if I want to plan my improvements.
Absolutely.
And the sewer scope costs about $200 to $250.
Okay.
So you're looking at like $700
every time you are interested in making an offer on a house. That's
Yep.
wild. Okay, so this is something that people need to know to be prepared. Let's talk about the pre-approval, because it's never been easier to get pre-approved. I could go on an app on my phone and be like, yeah, I'm pre-approved. Like, look, this is my loan, right? But much like the advantage in this market with everything so crunched is using a local expert for your realtor. You also need a local expert for your lender, right? Can you talk about why that's important?
It's important because, putting on the listing hat really quick, if I have 5 offers, you're analyzing risk because they're all going to come in around the same typically, price-wise. So you're looking at each term. And so anything that can give you an edge. And if you have a local, well-respected, well-known lender, and then this other offer that's maybe just as good price-wise has a lender that people go,
well, and why do people go? It's like the difference
surprises, not being readily available.
I would say urgency.
Urgency.
Like a local lender who is representing people in this community who has their reputation to defend needs to close on time. They need to do what they say they're going to do.
Accountability. Like if and I'm a client of the lenders that I trust and refer. I'm their client too, so they don't want to let me down either. And so
when you have an out of area lender that's like an institutional lender, they might be like, whatever, just deal with it, not realizing the client's going to lose the house.
And then my client's like, we can't get a hold of our lender. And it's like, what do? I don't have that relationship. They don't have that accountability to me. They don't think I'm ever going to use them again. So it's just a whole different, and I've had clients describe it to me as like, I felt like the market's really hard. It was nice to have like a team.
Yeah.
Of people helping me.
Working together. So let's talk about, for folks that are buying from outside the area, like what is different in this frenzied, crunched market when you're not here looking? How does that work? I mean, obviously we have the technology. We can do live or pre-recorded virtual tours. But like, what is different? What do they need to have their expectations set at to be successful buying from afar?
Well, going from that, I'll tell you like my preference, like when I'm talking to clients and I'm helping them prep. Because yes, I could go in, I could do a Marco Polo of the house, I can show you the block, but I really encourage people either before they start their process of house hunting or during to get down here, even just for like a few days. Yeah, or up here. Because I'll tell you what, you can only get so much idea of your neighborhood by the block.
Yeah.
Like, you need to drive around, you need to see how it feels, you need to see what's nearby. And it helps you, even if you just come out once, at least you know, because you can look at the map, you've driven around. So
oh yeah, I remember that spot.
Yeah, so the next time I show you a house, you can look at it on the map and go, oh yeah, we drove through there, that we jive with that. So I would say getting out here in person is huge. Yeah, you don't have to buy a house, but I think for, feeling confident about your home purchase, you should definitely know where you're buying.
So one option for people relocating is to do it like you just described, fully remotely, maybe fly out before.
I've had people not even fly out here. I mean, it's possible, but as being as prepared as possible, especially when you're buying in such a competitive market, to avoid buyer's remorse or just knowing what you're getting.
Feel more confident about your decision too. So another option that I've seen people do is fly out and they live with either family who already lives here, or they do an Airbnb for a few months. Like they're in a situation that is temporary, so not ideal, but they have a lot more strength and flexibility in their buying position when they do it that way. What do you think about that? Versus, I mean, obviously like signing a lease for 6 to 12 months, you're definitely going to get a hang for the neighborhood, but we saw 15% appreciation year over year last year too. So you're kind of leaving money on the table. How would you
Well,
advise?
I've also had people come out and go, okay, I'm coming out. Hey, Keryn, just so you know, I'm coming out for 3 days. I want to find my house in those 3 days. And I'm like, you might find a house you like, but you might not be able to win it, you know? So as much flexibility as possible, I think, is great. Like the Airbnb situation. Because yeah, if you get locked into a lease, that just makes it, and especially when you do decide to start looking, trying to juggle a lease and closing on the house, it's a lot, it's stressful. Well, another thing I've been doing with relocators that I've really liked, so before COVID was a thing, I used to have people come out and they'd get in my car and we'd just drive around and I'd give them like a Tacoma tour. Not having people in my car much these days. So what I've been doing recently is I made like a self-guided Tacoma tour.
Nice.
And then I have landmarks in the different neighborhoods. And that's been really nice for people to just drive down, even people from Seattle who haven't really been to Tacoma. It's a good way for them to get down and explore on their own, but know what they're where they are.
That makes a lot of sense. So in summary, if people are buying who already live in Tacoma, people are buying who are moved to Tacoma, like they need to think about preparation, having their pre-approval.
Cash on hand for things like pre-inspections, appraisal gap addendums. It's more than just your down payment and closing costs right now.
That's a really good thing to remember and to emphasize. I would also say working with a local expert, working with an agent who specializes as much as possible in the community you're buying in, that knows what things are going for. One concern I always have when friends use an agent from outside the area, maybe from the north or the south, that those agents kind of give away the farm in Tacoma. Because even though our market is insanely competitive, it feels like to us, it's still not as bad as what's happening in Seattle. And you see clients, or in California, right? Like you see clients like giving things up they don't have to give up. So my big piece of advice, and I know I sound like a broken record, is just use someone who works in this environment and knows it really, really well. Because it's changing, but they're experts.
And I was also throw in there, we all have a certain amount of energy, especially first-time buyers in this market. I feel like it can be it can take a toll on you. So having your agent do extra prep work, like finding out, okay, your top is this, let me see where the other offers are coming in at. Like preserve as much energy as possible, because you should not be making 20 offers, especially if you're having to pre-inspect. Like have your agent
a good point.
Be very intentional and strategic. Like don't pre-inspect the first day it's on the market. Wait a couple days before the review. Find out if other people have pre-inspected. So do you even have to? Find out if they're over the top of what your client wants to offer, so you can just wash your hands of it before you're like $700 in.
That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, kind of speaks to the local expertise I was just talking about. So in summary, 2021 buyer's market, it's not a buyer's market, it's a seller's market. It's gonna be hard. So find your person, give me a call if you'd like an introduction, and good luck.